Imagine giving your heart to someone, only to be cast aside like you never mattered, left alone with 3 hungry children and a soul shattered beyond words. Imagine wandering the streets, empty and invisible, believing no one would ever care, until a familiar face from your past suddenly appears. Is it fate offering a second chance, or just another storm disguised as hope? Brace yourself as we unravel a soul-stirring tale of love lost, betrayal's sting, and the fragile hope of redemption. Cynthia had always been the kind of woman who turned heads. Her beauty was effortless, the type that drew attention even when she wasn't trying. But behind that beauty was a mind troubled by the weight of a crumbling home. Her husband, Ifeanyi, once a promising civil servant, had lost his job during a massive downsizing. Since then, things had only worsened. The bills piled up, the rent was overdue. Their 3 children, Chisholm, Adaez, and little Somto, often went to bed hungry. Cynthia tried to hold on. At first, she believed love could carry them through the storm. But months passed, and their reality only grew darker. Every time she looked into her children's eyes, she saw dreams fading before they even began. Her heart ached, but her resolve hardened. She wanted more, needed more. One morning, after feeding the children what little Gary they had left, she left a note beside the sleeping Ifeanyi. No long goodbyes, just a few words. Forgive me. I'll come back when I can change our lives. She boarded a night bus to Abuja, and from there, she disappeared into the unknown. Years passed. Cynthia remade herself from the ground up. She started as a housekeeper for a businesswoman who took a liking to her determination. Through that connection, she found her way into the world of trade, import and export, fabrics, and later real estate. She was sharp, disciplined, and relentless. By the 6th year, Cynthia was no longer the woman who left her family in shame. She was now Madam C, a name whispered with respect across business circles. But with every contract she signed, every building she bought, and every dress she wore, a part of her remained empty. Guilt whispered to her in quiet moments. Were her children safe? Had Ifeanyi survived the storm she'd walked away from? She decided to find them. It was a hot afternoon in Lagos when Cynthia returned. Her driver dropped her off in a quiet corner of the city, not far from the mainland, where someone had told her Ifeanyi might be. She had paid private investigators and gone through endless dead ends. But that day, fate showed her a cruel face. Near the dusty roadside by Oshodi, she saw a man sitting on the curb, his clothes tattered, his eyes sunken. He had a small plate in front of him with a few naira notes scattered inside. 2 children, barefoot and dirty, sat beside him watching cars go by with hollow eyes. Cynthia stopped breathing. It was Ifeanyi. Her eyes shifted to the older child, Chisholm, maybe, and the girl, Adaezi, the smallest one, Somto, sat asleep on a piece of cardboard. She fell to her knees, tears pouring freely. Her polished nails, diamond earrings, and Italian shoes meant nothing now. Ifeanyi, she whispered, barely able to speak. Oh God, what happened to you? He looked at her blank at first, then his face twisted with something between rage and heartbreak. You left, he said slowly. When we needed you most, you left. Cynthia reached for him, but he pulled back. I came back. I came to make things right, she sobbed. I didn't know. I thought, you thought money could fix everything? He spat. You thought abandonment could be erased with wealth? The children looked up at her, unsure of who she was. Adaez clung to Ifeanyi, eyeing Cynthia like a stranger. She was a stranger now. Cynthia dropped to her knees on the burning pavement, unmindful of the stares from passers-by or the dust staining her gown. Her voice trembled as she pleaded. Ifeanyi, please, I know I failed you. I know I failed them. But I swear to you, I didn't leave because I stopped loving you. I left because I was scared, because I thought if I could find a way, any way, I could save us. He didn't speak. Let me help now, she said, rising slowly. Let me take you away from this, just for a day. For them, Ifeanyi, look at them. His eyes flicked to the children, who were now standing, confused, but drawn to the calm in her voice and the strange warmth of this woman's tears. Cynthia turned to her driver and whispered something. The man nodded and made a quick phone call. Within 20 minutes, a black SUV pulled up and the driver opened the door. She extended her hand. Please. Ifeanyi hesitated, then nodded, if only for the children's sake. He lifted Somto gently and ushered the others into the car. They arrived at Echo Hotel and Suites, its towering glass reflecting the sun like a palace in the sky. The staff, used to wealthy clients, didn't flinch at the strange appearance of the guests, dirty, barefoot, and wide-eyed. Cynthia had already arranged for a private luxury suite, meals, clothing, and medical care. The children were whisked away by kind attendants to be cleaned, dressed, and fed. Inside the suite, Ifeanyi sat still on the leather couch. He stared out the window at the Lagos skyline, a view he never imagined seeing, not after the life he'd come to know. Cynthia returned from checking on the children. She sat beside him, quiet for a while, then began to speak. "I came to Lagos first," she said softly, "but things were rough. I almost gave up. Then I met a woman who owned a cleaning company. She took a chance on me. I worked like a slave, saved every naira, learned the business, and slowly climbed. I started my own business, dealt in textiles, then land, and now real estate." She paused. "There wasn't a day I didn't think of you, or them. But I was ashamed. I didn't know how to come back. I thought if I could just get to a place where I could fix it all, maybe I could return as a hero." Ifeanyi scoffed bitterly. "A hero?" Cynthia lowered her gaze. "No, a coward. I know that now." The children came into the room wearing fresh clothes, Samto in tiny sneakers, Adayas in a sparkling dress, and Chisholm looking like a boy reborn. They were laughing, holding plates of jollof rice and chicken, wide-eyed at the flat-screen TV and the swimming pool they'd just discovered. Their joy pierced Ifeanyi's heart in a way he hadn't felt in years. Still, he couldn't forget the nights he begged on streets, the shame in his children's eyes when people spat insults, the ache of watching his family fall apart without the one woman who could have held it together. "I see the children happy," he said, turning to her, "but that doesn't erase the pain. You don't know what we went through." "You're right," Cynthia replied, eyes welling up again. "But I want to know. I want to hear it. I want to feel it, every ounce of it, because I need to carry that pain too." He looked at her for a long moment, torn between love and hurt, between old memories and fresh wounds. The children called out to him, laughing by the balcony window. Cynthia smiled faintly. "Just let me be here. Let me earn your forgiveness, even if it takes the rest of my life." On that day, Cynthia left. The morning light was pale when Ifeanyi stirred from sleep. The cracked ceiling of their one-room home greeted his eyes, its cobwebbed corners and peeling paint, a silent witness to years of struggle. The rusted fan above wheezed softly, its lazy rotation doing little to chase the heat. A low cough from Samto, his youngest, tugged at his heart. She was only a year old, too young to understand the bitterness that had taken root in their home. He reached out to the other side of the bed instinctively, his fingers searching for Cynthia's warmth, but it was cold, empty. His brows furrowed as he sat up, sensing something was wrong. Then his eyes caught it, a folded note placed neatly on the rickety stool that stood by the doorway. His heart dropped before he even touched it. Hands trembling, he unfolded the paper. "I can't do this anymore. I love my children, but I can't keep watching them starve. I can't keep pretending that this life is enough. I tried, but I'm not strong like you. I need to leave before I lose myself completely. Please take care of them. Forgive me." "Cynthia," he read it once, then again, and again. By the fourth time, the words blurred behind his tears. He sank to the floor, his back against the cracked wall, the letter still clutched in his hand. His body shook with silent sobs. The sounds of his children waking up behind him, soft murmurs, tiny feet padding on the cement floor, reached him like echoes in a storm. He couldn't break down now, not in front of them. But how do you hold up a world that has already collapsed? Ifeanyi was 20 when he lost his parents, a car accident that stole not just lives, but dreams. From that moment, survival became his language. He took up odd jobs, worked construction during the day, and cleaned shops at night. When he met Cynthia, he thought the curse had broken. Her smile brought color into his gray existence. They had fallen in love fast, married faster, and started a family they thought they could manage together. But life had other plans. With each child, the strain grew, the jobs dwindled, inflation rose, the economy tightened like a noose. Sometimes they ate once a day, sometimes not at all. Yet Ifeanyi stayed. Cynthia slowly faded, until the day she vanished, leaving nothing but her scent on the baby's clothes and that devastating letter. Somto, barely able to walk, had no idea her mother was gone. Chisholm, the oldest at 9, asked for her every night. Adiazi, the middle child, stopped speaking for days. Ifeanyi had to become father, mother, provider, protector, a one-man army against poverty. He cried every night. He would wait until the children were asleep, then go outside, sit on the broken pavement behind the house, and let the tears come freely. He'd cry until dawn broke, then wipe his face, swallow his pain, and start again. Life didn't pause for Ifeanyi to mourn. Cynthia was gone, and the children were still here, hungry, innocent, depending on him like the frail roof over their heads. The days that followed her departure bled into each other. He would strap Somto to his back, hold Adaizi's tiny hand, and lead Chisholm by his side as they searched the streets of Enugu for something, anything to bring home. Chike was 9, with a mind older than his years. After missing school for weeks and watching his father drown in hopelessness, he came to Ifeanyi one evening as they shared a cold cup of gari soaked in water. "Papa," he said, "let me help." Ifeanyi blinked at him. "How?" "Kahawk like the other boys, pure water. I see them after school." Ifeanyi's heart sank. No father wants to hear such words from a child who should be playing, dreaming, learning, but they had no choice. The last of their savings had dried up, and hunger doesn't wait for dignity. The next morning, they bought 2 bags of pure water on credit from Mama Ijioma's shop. They started walking. Under the blistering sun, through market crowds and traffic-choked roads, father and son carried the cold satchels of water in basins on their heads. Pure water. Cold, pure water. Shout, voice cracking, eyes pleading. Ifeanyi stood beside him, echoing the call. Some days they sold a full bag. On luckier days, both. But even when they did, the profit barely covered dinner. Just another night of boiled yam without oil or salt. People would pass them, some dropping coins, some scowling. Others would shake their heads in pity, whispering, "Where is their mother?" Ifeanyi heard it all. But the worst came 2 months later. The landlord, tired of unpaid rent and excuses, arrived with 2 men and a padlock. "You have until tonight," the landlord barked. "If you're not gone, I'll throw you and those children out myself." Ifeanyi begged. He offered to pay in small bits. He offered labor, painting, cleaning, fixing, but the landlord's face remained like stone. That night, with the children fast asleep, he packed what little they had, a plastic bowl, some worn clothes, one faded photo of Cynthia holding baby Somto, and left. He carried Somto, held Adaiz with one hand, and rested the water basin on Chisholm's head with the other. They had no home, no plan. By midnight, they found shelter in an abandoned building behind a construction site. It was half-built, left to rot by some failed project. The roof was incomplete, the floor dusty and full of rubble, and the walls were covered in graffiti. Rats scurried through the corners. The air reeked of urine and smoke. But it was shelter. That night, Ifeanyi held his children close on the cold concrete floor. Adaiz whimpered in her sleep. Chisholm lay silent, eyes wide open. Ifeanyi knew he was awake, scared, and Somto stirred now and then, as if looking for the mother she hadn't seen in months. Ifeanyi closed his eyes and whispered to the darkness, "I'm sorry." The hawking wasn't enough. They could no longer afford even the bags of pure water. Hunger returned, cruel, bitter, unforgiving, so they started begging. At first, Ifeanyi couldn't do it, but when Adaizi fainted one morning from hunger and there was nothing to feed her, he broke. He carried Somto on his back, held a cup in his hand, and stood at the corner of the market. "Please, anything for my children." Some gave. Most ignored him. A few hurled insults. "Lazy man! Where's your wife? Go get a job!" He heard it all, every word cutting deeper than the last. But Chisholm was there beside him, barefoot, dusty, holding his own cup. Adaiz would sit on a carton, arms wrapped around her knees, watching people with hollow eyes. At night, they'd return to the building with whatever they got. Maybe some rice, a few naira coins, a half-finished bottle of water someone threw away. It wasn't life. It was survival. Barely. And through it all, Ifeanyi never stopped crying. Never during the day, never in front of the kids. But once they were asleep, he'd step outside and cry under the stars. The night was the only place he could be weak. It was a scorching afternoon in Enugu. The market was its usual chaos, cars honking, voices shouting, radios blaring, and footsteps everywhere. Ifeanyi stood in the corner with Somto tied to his back and Chisholm holding Adaiz's hand. Their cup sat nearly empty. Chisum hadn't spoken in hours, his face dull with exhaustion. Ade's lips were dry and cracked. Samto had stopped crying, a terrifying silence that meant the hunger had gone too deep. Ifanye knelt, holding Chisum's shoulders gently. "Just a little more, okay? We'll go soon." Then came the voice. "Excuse me," a woman said, her tone warm, almost too warm. "Are these all your children?" Ifanye turned to see a woman dressed in a flowing green wrapper, gold-rimmed glasses perched on her nose, and perfume so strong it almost covered the scent of fish and sweat around them. She looked expensive. "Yes," he replied cautiously. The woman's eyes lingered on Chisum, who quickly looked away. "My name is Madam Grace," she said. "I run a foundation in Lagos for children like these. I could help you, if you're willing." Ifanye's heartbeat quickened. He'd heard this story before, kind offers with bitter endings. He straightened up, protective. "What kind of help?" She smiled. "I can take this one." She gestured at Chisum. "Put him in school. Take care of him. Give him a future." Ifanye's jaw tightened. "If you want to help him, then help us. I won't give my child to a stranger. He's all I have. I can't abandon him like his mother did. If you really want to help, take me too. I'll wash your clothes, clean your house, anything. Just don't separate us." Madame Grace's smile thinned, but she nodded. "All right, all of you then." They left that same evening. From Enugu to Lagos, the journey was long and restless. Samto cried half the way. Chisum stayed close to the window, his small hand tightly wrapped around Ade's. Ifanye stared out into the night, whispering silent prayers. Maybe, just maybe, this was their new beginning. They arrived at a large compound in Lekki, with tall iron gates and a house that stretched wider than any Ifanye had seen. Mama Ogum's mansion. The air smelled of lavender and money. Inside, marble floors and expensive curtains draped every wall. But the beauty of the house masked the coldness in its heart. Mama Ogum, who Madame Grace introduced as her elder sister, welcomed them with forced warmth. "You'll work hard," she warned from the start. "Nothing is free here, but I feed 4 of you, and that's already a lot." And so began a different kind of suffering. Ifanye became a domestic servant. He cleaned, cooked, fetched water, did laundry, and tended to the garden. Chisum and Adadai scrubbed floors, helped in the kitchen, and watched over Samto when Ifanye was busy. The mansion was big, but their world inside it was very small. The promised school for Chisum never came. Next term, Mama Ogum would say, with a wave of her hand, "Let him earn his keep first." Their meals were leftovers: cold rice, half-eaten meat, bread crusts. But Ifanye never complained. For the first time in months, they had beds, not mats on a dusty floor. Mosquitoes weren't eating the children alive at night, and sometimes there was juice, if they were lucky. Still, he never stopped watching. There was something unsettling in Mama Ogum's eyes, a way she stared at Chisum sometimes, a hunger that wasn't maternal. Her mood would swing unpredictably, and she never let Ifanye out of the gate. Then one night, while washing dishes after a long day, he heard her voice from the sitting room. The door was slightly open. Yes, I have the boy," she whispered on the phone. "Clean, obedient, not touched. You'll get him before the new moon. Just send the money to the usual account." Ifanye carefully dropped the plate. He stood frozen. His blood ran cold. She was talking about Chisum. That night, he didn't sleep. He waited for the house to fall silent, for the dogs to curl back into their kennels, for the generator hum to die. At 2 a.m., he wrapped Samto tightly on his back, took a daisy in one hand, and nudged Chisum awake. "We're leaving," he whispered. Chisum didn't ask questions. He just nodded. They crept out through the back kitchen door, hopped the short wall at the back of the compound, and disappeared into the Lagos night. By sunrise, they were under the bridge at Ojuelegba, curled beneath torn cartons. The traffic roared above them. Horns blared. Life went on, uncaring, indifferent. Ifanye sat with his back to a concrete pillar, his children huddled around him. He had no plan, no money, no food, nothing but the clothes on their backs and the fire in his chest to protect his children. But at least they were alive and free. Each dawn brought a new set of challenges, so Ifanye decided to work at a construction site, his spirit laden with hope, hopes for a home of their own, for a future filled with promise. Yet, as days turned into weeks, Ifanye grappled with the weight of his responsibility. With Samto growing more adventurous by the day, Ifanye was faced with a difficult decision. he chose to leave his children in the care of a man named Uncle Frank, a well-liked shop owner whose kindness was known throughout the neighborhood. Frank's shop, conveniently located beside the bridge, promised a safe haven for the children while their father worked. It was a leap of faith, one that Ifeanyi hoped would lead to better days. Adaeze, just 10 years old, took on the role of caretaker for her siblings, ensuring Somto was fed and watched over, while Chisom at 15 embraced his newfound role as protector and brother. Frank's generosity allowed Adaeze to prepare meals for her brother, and sometimes even for their father, when he visited Uncle Frank's shop. The aroma of hot rice and chicken often filled the shop, and Ifeanyi would express his gratitude to Frank for his unwavering support, believing he had found a savior in this kind-hearted bachelor. However, beneath the surface of this seemingly supportive arrangement lay darkness. Uncle Frank's affection began to twist into something sinister. He gradually exposed Adaeze and Chisom to inappropriate online content, promising them indulgent treats in exchange for keeping their encounters a secret. The innocence of childhood began to fade as they were drawn into a world no child should ever know. Months passed. It was during a visit to Ifeanyi's makeshift home one evening that Frank presented him with an enticing offer: a job as a security guard in Abuja, a position that would require relocating without his children. "I just want to help you," Frank assured him. "I can't bear to see you suffering like this." For the first time, desperation softened Ifeanyi's heart. Perhaps this was the opportunity he had been waiting for, and perhaps Uncle Frank could be trusted with his children, for now. As Frank departed, he left his phone behind, and curiosity compelled Ifeanyi to look through it. What he discovered shattered the fragile world he had been clinging to. His heart raced as he found disturbing videos of Frank's shocking betrayal with Adaeze and Chisom. Rage surged within him, igniting a fire hotter than any he had ever felt before. Without a second thought, he stormed to Frank's shop, his children trailing behind, sensing their father's fury. In a whirlwind of emotion, Ifeanyi confronted Frank, delivering a storm of anger that echoed through the streets. The fight became a cacophony of rage and despair, but even in the chaos, Chisom and Adaeze stood resolute, united with their father against the darkness that had invaded their lives. When passers-by inquired about the commotion, Ifeanyi found himself at a loss for words. The truths he had seen were too raw, too painful to articulate. Back in their small tent under the bridge, he turned to his children, a desperate question escaping his lips. "Why didn't you come to me? Why didn't you tell me about the things you faced?" Tears streamed down Adaeze's cheeks as she spoke. "We are tired, Papa, tired of struggling to feed ourselves, of watching you cry when you think we aren't looking." As those heartfelt words echoed in the dim light of their tent, Ifeanyi crumbled. He sank to his knees, enveloped by grief, joining his children in their shared sorrow. Even little Somto, unable to grasp the full weight of their pain, began to weep, sensing the anguish surrounding him. In the days that followed, Ifeanyi felt a profound sense of defeat. The will to work evaporated, and they were drawn back into begging, struggling to survive on the remnants of what little they had. But in their shared suffering, they found strength in one another. They discovered that love, despite its scars, was a bright flame against the coldness of the world. Cynthia dropped to her knees again, this time inside the cool, scented walls of the luxury suite. Her weeping was no longer restrained. Bitter sobs racked her chest as she clutched the hem of Ifeanyi's old trousers, her face soaked with tears and mucus streaming from her nose without shame or dignity. "I'm sorry, I'm so sorry," she cried out, her voice breaking. "I abandoned you. I abandoned my own flesh, our babies. Look what I did to you." Her makeup ran in streaks, her designer dress now clinging to her in a crumpled mess as she bowed her head to the floor, her shoulders trembling with grief. "I was supposed to be your wife, their mother, but I broke us." Ifeanyi stood still, fists clenched at his sides, his lips trembling. Tears had begun to fall from his eyes, too. He had carried the pain for so long, too long. He had never been allowed to mourn it openly. But now, watching Cynthia break down, it opened something deep in him, and he wept. The children, who moments ago had been spinning and laughing, froze. Slowly, they moved closer. Adaeze held Somto's hand, while Chisom stepped closer to his father. Seeing their mother weep that way, something clicked in their young hearts. And then, quietly, they too began to cry. The room was filled with the sound of a family finally feeling the weight of their brokenness. "I'll give you the world," Cynthia said through the tears, looking up at her children, then at Ifeanyi. "Everything I have, everything I am, it's all yours. Please, just give me the chance to make it right." That evening, Cynthia bathed her children herself, carefully washing their hair, scrubbing behind their ears, and wrapping them in soft, white towels. It was the first time in years she had touched them with the gentleness of a mother. She kissed their foreheads and told them stories as she dressed them in new clothes. Ifeanyi watched silently, a knot still in his chest, but a warmth beginning to push through. She took them to the grandest dinner buffet in the hotel, glittering chandeliers above, soft piano music playing in the background. The children were awed by the endless choices of food. Samto didn't know what to eat first, ice cream or jollof rice. Adaye squealed at the sight of chocolate fountains, and Chisholm confidently grabbed grilled fish like a young prince. Ifeanyi sat beside Cynthia, his hand resting on the table. He looked at her, then at the children, full of joy and light, and for the first time in years he smiled. That smile didn't come from forgiveness. It came from peace, from seeing his children happy, from watching them live a life he had once thought was lost forever. The week that followed was filled with moments that made up for lost time. The children swam in the rooftop pool, had movie nights in the private cinema room, played games in the hotel's children's arcade, and ate like royalty. Cynthia never left their side. She laughed with them, slept beside them, cried some more, and told them stories of how she fought to become Mama C. At the end of that week, a long convoy of black SUVs drove through the gates of one of the grandest mansions in Banana Island. Golden gates parted slowly, revealing the opulent world Cynthia had built: white marble floors, high glass walls, vast gardens, and a playground that could rival a small amusement park. "I built this house," Cynthia said as they entered, "but I never made it a home until now." She gave each child their own room, filled with toys, books, and clothes. She gifted Ifeanyi a private office space and a quiet study room. But more than material things, she gave them her heart, undivided and without pride. With time, Cynthia introduced Ifeanyi into her world of business. At first he resisted, unsure, insecure, but she reminded him of the man he used to be. Slowly he began to attend meetings with her, shadowing her as she negotiated deals and managed properties. What surprised Cynthia the most was how sharp he was, how quickly he learned, how strategic his thinking had become. Years on the streets had not broken him. They had shaped him. He knew the value of money, the power of negotiation, and the hunger to never be poor again. Together, they rebranded the company, Mama C and Family Ventures, and it became more than a business. It was a symbol of redemption. Even though you're not ready for the day, it can't always be night.
If you enjoyed this story, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to this channel for more stories like this. Bye.